Quantum leaders, the executor. Applying the principle of quantum consciousness, oscillation between strong and weak forces. The executor's natural style is deliberate, accurate, and highly efficient. They bring systems to life through discipline and attention to detail. In every environment, they are the ones who ensure things are done right and on time. But quantum consciousness introduces a deeper mechanism behind execution, the dance between strong and weak forces. For the executor, true mastery comes not from constant control, but from the capacity to oscillate between focused structure and adaptive responsiveness. Their brilliance is not just in getting it done, but in knowing when to lock in and when to loosen their grip. With a motivation direction of away from, the executor is wired to prevent mistakes, delays, and inefficiencies. The strong force shows up in relentless quality control, rigorous adherence to timelines, and preventative safeguards. But when overused, this becomes rigidity, micromanagement, or burnout. The weak force allows them to soften, to trust the system they've built, to allow small inefficiencies in service of long-term flexibility. When the executor learns to oscillate between alertness and allowance, their systems become not only precise, but resilient. Their attention focus on self gives them internal consistency and accountability. The strong force shows up as self-sufficiency, high standards, and independence. Yet the weak force invites shared ownership, brief collaboration, permission to delegate, or quiet receptivity to feedback. When executors oscillate between internal control and external input, their work becomes less isolating and more integrated. They maintain excellence and deepen connection. With an internal frame of reference, the executor trusts their own methods. The strong force expresses as certainty, personal logic, and high-performance standards, but over-reliance can create inflexibility. The weak force invites curiosity, space to consider new tools, upgraded systems, or more elegant paths. The executor's evolution comes when they oscillate between what works and what could work better, without losing efficiency. Their procedural operational style is where the strong force is most visible. They excel at following structured workflows, enforcing timelines, and maintaining operational integrity. But the weak force invites nuance. Sometimes a step can be skipped. Sometimes intuition offers a smarter route. Executors become quantum when they allow subtle improvisation without sacrificing the system. Their rhythm shifts from mechanical to intelligent. Their specific viewpoint gives them sharp detail tracking. The strong force ensures thoroughness and zero error tolerance. But the weak force reminds them that not every detail matters equally. Oscillating into perspective allows the executor to zoom out, prioritize meaningfully, and stop perfectionism from becoming paralysis. They gain discernment, when to refine and when to release. With a solo work preference, the executor thrives in environments where they can focus without interruption. The strong force is deep, uninterrupted concentration. But the weak force calls for brief interdependence, a quick check-in, a shared review, a sync that prevents misalignment. Oscillating between solitude and strategic touchpoints increases not just efficiency, but accuracy, momentum, and team cohesion. Their dissociated emotional engagement helps them remain calm under pressure. The strong force here is emotional neutrality, objectivity, logic, and emotional containment. Yet the weak force invites selective sensitivity, feeling when others are overwhelmed, sensing tension in a project, infusing tone, timing, and delivery with care. The executor's leadership deepens when they allow emotion to inform, not overwhelm. As matchers, executors rely on what's tested. The strong force is replication, using proven frameworks and repeatable steps. But innovation requires the weak force, permission to deviate when the old pattern no longer fits. The executor grows when they oscillate between trusted systems and gentle recalibration. Their execution evolves into quiet innovation, evolution without chaos. Their through-time orientation gives them an impeccable sense of timing, sequence, and progress. The strong force ensures timelines are honored. But the weak force brings intuitive pacing, knowing when to press forward and when to pause, feeling when a deliverable needs one more day or when a delay is no longer productive. The executor becomes not just time efficient, but time wise. And with a primary drive of things, they are motivated by tangible completion. The strong force here is finishing, getting it done, closing the loop, delivering the result. But the weak force whispers, not yet. It honors the moments when precision asks for patience, when the last 2% of a project holds the difference between finished and flawless. The executor evolves from output machine to master of timing and form, delivering not just results, but resonance. In this quantum rhythm of action and attunement, the executor transcends the role of taskmaster. They become a conductor, one who senses the pulse of a project and guides it into completion, not just with force, but with feel. Their precision is no longer rigid. It becomes responsive. They don't just get things done, they get the right things done, at the right time, in the right way, for the right reason. And that is execution, redefined. Quantum leaders, the executor, dynamic equilibrium as nature's core design. The executor's natural style, methodical, structured, and devoted to accuracy, seems to embody stability itself. They create systems that work, processes that run, and outcomes that are consistent. But beneath this precision lies a subtler truth. No system holds unless it moves. And true stability doesn't come from rigidity, it comes from dynamic equilibrium. The executor's power increases not by eliminating deviation, but by learning how to absorb it without losing form. Their systems become enduring not because they resist change, but because they are built to breathe. With a motivation direction of away from, the executor focuses on eliminating error. The polarity here is prevention versus progress. In their effort to avoid mistakes, they can sometimes delay innovation or over-control a situation. But when they balance this instinct with trust in unfolding complexity, they begin designing adaptive precision. Their systems prevent collapse not by locking down, but by flexing intelligently. Their attention focus on self gives them self-discipline and personal accountability. The polarity is self-containment versus systemic integration. Too much inward focus can become tunnel vision. Too much outward pull can erode clarity. The executor matures when they allow others to influence their perception, without compromising their internal standards. This equilibrium produces clear-eyed execution that still hears the system. With an internal frame of reference, they act from inner metrics of excellence. The polarity arises between consistency and curiosity. If they follow rules too rigidly, stagnation results. If they chase novelty too quickly, standards erode. But when they honor their inner compass while staying open to refinement, their logic becomes living architecture, capable of evolving without collapse. Their procedural operational style thrives in step-by-step execution. The polarity lives between repetition and responsiveness. When processes are too fixed, they become brittle. When too loose, things fall through the cracks. The executor leads best when they allow minor adaptations within stable frameworks. They become not just operators, but designers of living systems. Their specific viewpoint sharpens every detail. The polarity here is micro-focus versus operational flow. Too much emphasis on perfection slows delivery. Too little attention to detail risks quality. Executors evolve when they zoom in and out, tracking precision without losing the broader trajectory. In this balance, they deliver excellence that arrives on time. With a solo work preference, they execute best in focused independence. The polarity arises between control and cooperation. When they never share the load, burnout or inefficiency results. But when they over-delegate without oversight, quality drops. Dynamic equilibrium asks them to move between ownership and trust, to design structures others can inhabit without letting go of the reins entirely. Their dissociated emotional engagement supports objectivity. The polarity here is neutrality versus attunement. Pure detachment can feel cold or mechanical. Emotional immersion risks clouding judgment. But when the executor allows subtle emotional presence, a shift in tone, a moment of pause, a quiet expression of care, their systems begin to feel human. Their clarity becomes comforting, not clinical. As matchers, they replicate what has worked. The polarity, preservation versus evolution. Relying solely on the past can entrench outdated methods. Dismissing the past too quickly leads to reinventing the wheel. The mature executor preserves what endures and lets go of what constrains. Their structures become living knowledge, not frozen templates. Their through-time orientation gives them mastery of sequence, pacing, and forecasting. The polarity here is planning versus presence. If overly locked to the plan, they resist new opportunities. If too present moment focused, they lose the arc. When they learn to plan with room to pivot, their timelines become both reliable and wise. And with a primary drive of things, they are drawn to completing, delivering, and measuring. The polarity is completion versus calibration. Finishing is essential, but so is knowing when to pause. Sometimes waiting a day delivers 10 times the clarity. Sometimes a half step back brings forward the insight that ensures quality. The executor grows when they value refinement as much as results. In this mode of dynamic equilibrium, the executor becomes more than a task finisher. They become a calibrator of excellence, guiding projects and systems into rhythm, not just checklists. Their strength lies not in perfection, but in adaptive fidelity, holding clarity even as conditions change. In their hands, execution becomes a living act, structured but responsive, exacting but wise. They don't just deliver what's asked, they deliver what's needed in a way that lasts. Quantum leaders, the executor. Observer effect and the collapse of possibility. The executor's natural style, disciplined, precise, and laser-focused on outcome, seems at first to live outside abstraction. They believe in action, evidence, and execution. Yet the quantum principle of the observer effect reframes their role entirely. What the executor expects, notices, or assumes begins to shape the reality they deliver. Their intense focus doesn't just ensure quality, it collapses potential into form. They are not merely following the system, they are defining what becomes real within it. Their expectations are not passive, they are instructions to the field. With a motivation direction of away from, the executor is acutely alert to what might go wrong. But when that focus becomes habitual, it collapses possibility into limitation. Systems begin reflecting their cautious gaze. This will be delayed. This part always breaks. That teammate never gets it right. In this way, the observer becomes the constraint. The executor's power grows exponentially when they begin to shift their gaze toward what is functional, what is improving, what could exceed expectation. Their observation becomes an accelerant, not a restraint. Their attention focus on self brings personal excellence and consistency. But their self-observation becomes energetic instruction. If they see themselves as overburdened or unappreciated, that perception seeps into the system, generating invisible walls around them. But when they observe themselves as effective, supported, and respected, others begin responding accordingly. They are not just producing outcomes, they are projecting roles into the system, and the system listens. With an internal frame of reference, the executor relies on their internal standards to guide action. But the observer effect warns, those internal standards become frameworks for external results. If they believe a system is broken, it will break. If they believe a timeline is too tight, it becomes strained. Their assumptions, if unconscious, turn into barriers. But when they hold those assumptions with curiosity, possibility reopens. The executor doesn't just execute outcomes, they construct them through attention. Their procedural operational style supports consistency, but each repetition reinforces what the executor believes should happen. If they expect resistance at step 4, it will show up. If they expect a delay after testing, the system delivers accordingly. When they shift from "this always happens" to "this time may be different," they introduce freedom into the loop. Their execution evolves from predictable repetition to intentional alignment. Their specific viewpoint makes them attuned to small errors and inconsistencies. But observation here becomes a double-edged sword. If the executor fixates on flaws, the field tightens. Others become anxious, opportunities shrink. But when they choose to observe what is working, what is accurate, what was completed well, the field responds. Success replicates. Details stabilize. Their focus no longer just prevents failure. It generates precision. With a solo work preference, the executor may believe their thoughts don't influence the collective. But even in silence, their attention sends signals. A task avoided, a delay assumed, a stress felt but unspoken. These unseen observations ripple. The moment the executor brings conscious clarity into their environment, naming what they see with neutrality or encouragement, the system reorganizes. Their silence was never neutral. Their awareness was always shaping outcomes. Their dissociated emotional engagement gives them composure. But emotional detachment does not negate influence. It just makes it invisible. Unspoken stress communicates urgency. Suppressed frustration becomes felt tension. The executor's leadership matures when they acknowledge emotion as data within the field, not interference. Even subtle warmth, presence, or steadiness becomes a stabilizing transmission. As matchers, executors rely on what has worked, but observation based only on precedent can freeze innovation. That's how it's always been, becomes a lens that locks in outdated structure. The observer effect invites them to notice what is subtly shifting, what feels smoother today, what new potential is just beginning to show. When they start tracking emergence, not just precedent, they begin executing from the edge of evolution. Their through-time orientation enables strategic sequencing, but when they observe the future too rigidly, they collapse timing into pressure. "We'll never make that deadline" becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy. The executor expands their power when they observe timelines not just as pressure points, but as fluid windows of readiness. Their presence shifts not just what happens, but when. And with a primary drive of things, the executor is devoted to deliverables. But every output they generate reflects their internal narrative. Was this built under strain? Was it rushed? Was it created with clarity? The deliverable carries the frequency of its maker. Executors who become conscious of their mental and emotional state during action begin producing outcomes that feel better, function better, and integrate more cleanly. In this frame, the executor is no longer just the final step in a process. They are the quiet orchestrator of manifestation. Their focus is a tuning device. Their attention is causality. And when they learn to observe from openness, not assumption, they unlock results that surpass expectation. They stop collapsing old outcomes and start collapsing new possibilities into precision. The executor doesn't just make things real, they choose what kind of reality gets made.